the Industrial Revolution came for Southern Illinois' vast reserves of bituminous coal, Marion and the nearby towns and villages were supported by a local, mostly agrarian economy. Primarily subsistence farming, the area's most productive farms just met the needs of local residents. But by the second half of the 19th century, newly invented mechanized farming equipment led to vast tracts of additional arable land becoming available just as the demand for tobacco began to soar. By 1860, many of the area farmers and landholders had dedicated large tracts of farmland around Marion and throughout southern Illinois to growing the very popular and profitable weed. With many steps in the tobacco growing, harvesting, and curing process, the young town of Marion became a regional hub just as the area's first commercial industry began to take shape. An April 10, 1882 article from the Marion Monitor Weekly boasted about the town's 43 productive tobacco curing barns, in addition to the quality of tobacco coming from southern Illinois soil. Each year, harvest season in the area was signified by the riot of aromas emanating from all those barns. Curing tons of sweet-smelling tobacco over smoldering hardwoods like hickory, oak, and the most popular, mesquite, when it could be sourced. A scent the locals referred to as airing out the money. With an estimated 1.5 million pounds of cured tobacco produced each year in the area, tobacco was king in southern Illinois long before Old King Cole took his throne. Many decades before Marion would be connected by rail, it would be a common sight to witness long lines of oxen pulling hogsheads full of tobacco east to Shawneetown and its ports on the Ohio River. By the mid-19th century, it would be tobacco that would be the driving force behind Marion's fledgling economy, with many of Marion's founding families invested heavily in the production of the volatile commodity. Much of the early town's fortunes rose and fell based on tobacco's price and demand. By the turn of the 20th century, the demand for southern Illinois coal was beginning to develop just as the demand for southern Illinois tobacco began to wane. With exponentially more money to be made in coal and enterprises that supported the mining of the fossil fuel, many of Marion's early fortunes shifted from tobacco to coal, and with coal's 70-plus years as the dominant industry in the area, very little of that pre-coal tobacco era of Marion's past can be found today, unless you just happen to know where to look. Starting at the center of town, one of the most prominent structures on Marion's town square today has a strong historical connection to Marion's tobacco era past. Born in 1839, the same year Marion and Williamson County were formed, Francis Goodall was the son of early pioneer settlers to the area. In 1857, at the age of 18, Francis Goodall raised his first crop of tobacco on his parents' farm just southeast of Marion. The endeavor would net the young farmer more than $1,500, or $55,000 in today's dollars. A tidy sum that would place the teenage entrepreneur on a path that would include the growing of tobacco for the next 30 years. Listed as a tobaccoist in the 1870 census, 33-year-old Francis Goodall would purchase the lot at 204 Public Square, where he would proceed to build the first of two multi-story brick buildings topped with the Goodall family name. Heavily invested in several commercial ventures in and around Marion, it would be the Goodall and Moeller Cigar and Tobacco Factory located on the northeast corner of the town square that would be Francis's primary business focus. The largest operation of its kind in the little town, the cigar and tobacco factory required as many as 35 workers at peak operation, making the Goodall and Moeller Cigar Factory one of Marion's largest employers at the time. On April 7, 1881, it would all come to an end when the two-story wood-framed structure would burn to the ground in an overnight fire that many locals considered to be quite suspicious. With Marion's shift to a coal-based economy at the time of the fire, the lot where the former cigar factory stood would be sold, making way for the construction of the Marion State and Savings Bank. Today, we know the location as Tower Square Pizza. Just around the corner at 112 East Main Street, we find the last remaining original portion of what was once known as Robertson's Block. Beginning around 1874, Marion resident Martin Robinson constructed the first of several buildings located on the east side of the town square along East Main Street. The facade we see today is the result of a late 1930s renovation that converted the structure into Marion's first Kroger grocery store. But in the late 1800s, the East Main Street structure was the home of J. Vick and Company Warehouse, purveyor of several locally popular products, tobacco, fine cigars being a big part of that selection. Just 3 blocks away at the intersection of East Main and Buchanan Street, we find the Robertson family home, located at 403 East Main Street. Constructed in 1899, the wood-frame single-story Queen Anne-style home was set high on a basement foundation to accommodate for the extreme slope of the lot. Originally constructed with a Buchanan Street address, the home's street address had extra meaning to the homeowner. In the early 1870s, while serving as trustee for the town of Marion, it would be Martin Robertson who would advocate for naming new streets in the growing town after U.S. presidents, a practice that was quickly abandoned once the need for new street names outpaced the names of past presidents. One of the largest landholders in the area, Martin Robertson managed the production of more than 350 acres of the county's most fertile and productive farmland while living in this modest Main Street residence, with the majority of that time spent growing, you guessed it, tobacco. And finally, in the southwest portion of downtown, along South Liberty Street, we have the location of the former Westbrook Tobacco Barns and Factory. Once a bustling center of light industrial activity, the collection of curing barns, warehouse, and tobacco factory once employed more than 30 Marion residents. Today, the location is a quiet, vacant lot in what is now a developing new residential area being marketed as the Arts District neighborhood. This is Sean Vincelette, and that is one of the many stories of Marion, Illinois.